Good afternoon, and for those of you in other time zones, good morning, or even indeed good evening. I'm delighted to be able to share some insights on the approach that we at Understanding Society have developed in influencing policy. My presentation will cover our strategy for generating policy impact, showcase some activities we undertake, and finally finish off with setting out some of the future challenges we would like to address. In the essence of time, I'm going to be selective in what I can cover in the next 10 minutes. To kick us off, for those who are new to Understanding Society, I thought it would be helpful to set out some information about the study. So we are an annual survey of individuals covering all ages with information collected at a household level. The study was started in 2009, building on the long-running British Household Panel survey. But there's one aspect of the study which might be quite different from other longitudinal studies. We are funded as a data infrastructure project and not directly to undertake substantive research. Through various levels of access, the data is publicly available to researchers, so we don't have an army of in-house researchers ourselves, except in relation to things such as methodological research, for instance. Although I will be focusing on our work on influencing policy, it is worth pointing out that our overall approach to impact is broader than that. This covers what benefits we provide to science, people, and policy, and indeed how we drive up innovation across these areas. We have a dedicated policy and partnerships unit. And indeed, it's important to recognize that many of our data users will also be influencing policy through their own activity and institutions, but such activity is often harder to track down. The pandemic actually provided me an opportunity to reflect on how we can be more effective at mobilizing data and evidence, and I've included a link to that report if some of you are interested. The broader approach to impact I mentioned is specified in a range of benefits that the Economic and Research Council expects us to deliver. These, for example, vary from capacity building and generating new insights into the interaction between social and biological data to informing the development of policy over time. If you're interested, we've produced a benefits report, which, while focusing on quantitative and measurable metrics, does provide a picture of what progress we've been making over the past 10 years. Of course, the study operates in a dynamic environment, and evidence is only one component alongside political priorities and deliberation of policy. Many of you will no doubt be aware that a wide range of factors go into determining what problems get tackled and the design of individual policies themselves, even if analysts, say, from a government department are directly using our survey data. When it comes to decision-making, a much wider group of people tend to be involved, from policy advisors and procurement and delivery specialists to communication staff and lawyers, and ultimately, of course, ministers decide policy. Thus, being able to set out the evidence in a broader context can help propel its use. Let me move on to our strategy. We have a three-pronged strategy, each underpinned by a work stream. So our responsive activities are demand-led. So typically, an analyst from a co-funding department will approach my team for support on a particular research project. The service we offer here is called Direct Access and provides help to those analysts. Given our data is publicly available, there is also a vast set of new research papers that are published each year. So the second strand of our strategy focuses on research, translation, and brokerage, providing policy audiences access to the latest evidence and experts. Our third strand is to think about bigger and more cost-cutting challenges we face as a society, and to proactively stimulate policy-relevant research on some of these issues, particularly through partnership and collaborations. In relation to our responsive activities, there are a range of government departments and devolved administrations we support. And this slide flags up a couple of examples of use cases of the study there. Ultimately, we want to ensure that government department users have the skills to use the data effectively. So this is not an outsourcing function for large-scale research or policy evaluations, but a much more limited analytical service. In relation to the second strand of our strategy about championing research by others, this slide showcases the range of publications and podcasts we produce, each of which serves a different purpose. The content is curated to align with topical policy debates and identified areas of research interests amongst policy users. Interestingly, we're discovering that our podcasts are being accessed by a significant number of new listeners, many of whom we suspect are finding us through audio channels. Engaging policy audiences and bringing them together with researchers is another part of this work stream. I don't intend to go through the slide here, but the key point is that we run different types of events depending on the subject matter and what objectives we want to achieve. In particular, we find workshops and roundtables are more useful for taking a more in-depth look at a particular problem, but other kinds of events are better at engaging more diverse audiences. And finally, the third strand of our strategy focuses on policy research. This strand of work is driven by proactively thinking about problems that could be better addressed by collaborating with others. This is a growing area of our work, and we have a policy and partnerships manager whose role is to manage such collaborations. One of the interesting things we've piloted recently, for example, is a 3-day data dive over a 2-week period to examine the opportunities and challenges of households transitioning towards net zero. This brought together about 30 individuals from across government, academia, and the not-for-profit sector. And finally, what are the challenges we'd like to address as we look ahead? I wanted to flag up 4 areas of interest to us. If some of these are also relevant to you, do drop me a line, because I'd be interested in what others might be doing in this similar space. Firstly, given the time and investment required in learning how to use longitudinal data well, how can we broaden access to the data itself? Here we're developing sector-specific training courses, for example, for trade unions, and trialing a data gateway. The latter will enable users to interrogate a specified set of variables online without downloading the data. Secondly, if we want to drive change, we need to make greater inroads in working with business as well. And thirdly, we're quite interested in how the study can be used for more complex purposes, such as policy evaluations and cost-benefit analysis. And lastly, thinking about research as a process rather than, let's say, research as a body of knowledge. How can we build partnerships that can bring greater momentum on critical long-term issues? So I'll stop there. I hope that was useful and contributes to the subsequent discussion in the breakout groups. Thank you.